the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Today we're talking about the 49ers offensive evolution. And the 49ers have went through a couple of evolutions since Kyle Shanahan came to San Francisco. In fact, it's probably been a few. He continues to try to stay ahead of the norms and stay ahead of the trends while developing an offense that can consistently score. Now, some of that hinges on certain types of players, and we've seen him take a mold of a player and use it to his advantage. We've seen him try to change directions, and by changing direction with certain types of players and how they were going to fit in an offense has changed the direction the league has went. We've seen Kyle Shanahan be the innovator of the positionless player. We've seen him take guys like Deebo Samuel and turn them into complete offensive weapons. So in turn, other teams did as well. On comes, guys who are going to be just offensive weapons, making plays in the backfield, making plays at wide receiver, and vice versa. And we've seen him continue to evolve and add to his team, but sometimes you just got to move on and move a different direction. And what do the 49ers do on offense now that Deebo Samuel's gone? And one of the things that I've been hearing a lot of, and I get some emails about it as well, is how are the 49ers going to replace Deebo Samuel's role? Because one of the conversation points throughout the last couple years especially has been when Deebo's now not out on the field, it's more difficult for Kyle Shanahan to call offense. And a lot of people looked at that as a detriment and looked at that as a flaw of Kyle Shanahan. But when you take a deeper look at what Deebo Samuel added to the 49ers offense and how Kyle Shanahan built what Deebo Samuel was doing into the offense, he really made it easier for Kyle Shanahan to call plays. But yeah, when he was hurt and especially when he went down in the game, it made things difficult because now you're removing entire portions of your game plan for Deebo Samuel. So the question about whether the 49ers, do Deebo roles or find Deebo players, right? The conversations about guys like Malachi Corley or players throughout the years like Treylon Burks, bringing these guys in that are Deebo-esque players, right? A guy that I was a fan of for a long time was Laviska Shenault. These guys are that positionless type player that can produce yards after the catch, have some ability in the backfield. I don't know if there's a pure Deebo player out there. I don't know if there's a guy that does it like Deebo Samuel can do it. When you're talking about he's successful in the backfield, he's also successful at wide receiver. The yards after the catch is a yak monster. I don't know if there's anyone that's identical. Probably the closest that I can see to him is his former teammate, Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey's ability to be a dominant running back, also the ability to play a slot receiver role is probably the most unique compared to Deebo Samuel. So it would make sense, right, if you said, hey, Christian McCaffrey is going to fill the Deebo Samuel role. Well, what if I was to tell you that I believe the 49ers are going to go a different route? That the 49ers are actually not looking for anyone to fill the Deebo Samuel role. That they're not looking for Malachi Corley. They're not looking for, Treylon Burks to fill that role. They're not looking for Christian McCaffrey to take on some of the Deebo role. There's going to be McCaffrey plays. There's going to be McCaffrey things, but it's not going to be Garendo. It's not going to be any of these guys. That Kyle Shanahan has a different direction. I'm going to be talking about the 49ers offensive evolution in this episode. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Belief Network. Please give it a 5-star rating. I really appreciate it if you feel like I deserve it. And if you are going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball in full swing and football season around the corner, Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB, UFC to tennis and NFL futures, Bet Online remains your choice for sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the Bet Online casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. Bet online, the game starts here. So, the 49ers drafted Deebo Samuel in 2019. With him came Jalen Hurd. And there was a little bit of an interesting portion of what Kyle Shanahan was going to do with Deebo and Jalen Hurd. In fact, most of the attention was put on Hurd compared to Deebo Samuel. And why was that? Well, Jalen Hurd was the guy who had played running back and had translated to wide receiver. He played running back at Tennessee. He had translated to wide receiver at Baylor. And you've got this dual threat player that Kyle Shanahan has at his disposal. And then you had Deebo Samuel, that was a yak monster. And all the attention was going to how was Kyle going to use these two guys and how was he going to take positionless players to the next level. Now, of course, Jalen Hurd got hurt in preseason, and it was the end of the road for him. But what we didn't know was that Deebo Samuel had more ability in the backfield than even we thought. When they put him in the backfield in 2021, he was remarkable. But if you look at the 2019 team as well, he was able to make some plays, some little counter plays that he took for touchdowns. The jet sweeps stretched out defenses horizontally and created run games for the 49ers gap scheme that they ran a ton of in 2019. And I know everyone always looks at the outside zone with Raheem Mostert and what was going on there, but they ran a ton of gap scheme in 2019, and it was opened up by the horizontal offense where Kyle Shanahan was looking to build an offense around Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo was very horizontal with the way that he attacked offensively, right? He wanted to get the ball out quickly. It was quick screens, it was quick outs, quick slants, get the ball out quickly to these guys and let them operate, especially over the middle of the field where this offense is always good over the middle of the field. This is somewhere where he likes to go. But now you're building an offense around Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy's skill set is different than Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah, he can play the short game. He can still do that. He can still win over the middle of the field with anticipation. But Brock Purdy also is able to create outside the numbers as well. Even though he doesn't have a tremendous arm, he's a better passer outside the numbers and outside the hash marks than Jimmy Garoppolo was. He's got better timing. He throws a better out route. He puts a little bit of zip on the ball, and it's just overall a better throw. So now you can generate offense a little bit differently. So out goes Deebo Samuel. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan wanted to move on from Deebo Samuel, but I think he's been preparing for it. That's where the offensive evolution comes in. Is the 49ers have known that once Deebo was off this team, it was going to change the way they run offense. No longer do they have that positionless player that defenses are going to have to focus on. So right now, when defenses were coming in to prepare for the 49ers, the first two questions they asked were, where is number 1 lined up? Where is number 23 lined up, which is Christian McCaffrey? Because those two things were going to make a big difference on how you attack the 49ers offense. And I get it. The 49ers had plenty of other weapons, right? Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. And we've seen Brandon Ayuk be a player the 49ers have ran offense through, especially in 2023. A lot of the offense went through Brandon Ayuk. A lot of the attention was going to Deebo Samuel and to Christian McCaffrey. So the 49ers have been looking for a opportunity to evolve, and we've seen it subtly happen. They kept Jawan Jennings. That was the first part of the conversation, was once they kept him, there was a chance Deebo was going to move on at some point. They also drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round. And how exactly did that illustrate that they were looking to potentially move on from Deebo Samuel and go a different route? Was that he plays the same role as Deebo Samuel in the offense, not the extra things that Deebo did. He's not positionless. He doesn't do, all the screens and the jet sweeps. He can do those things to a point, but it's not what you're exactly looking for with Deebo. But he plays the Z role. And so that position has been Deebo's role pretty much since he took over as a rookie, right? He came in and they traded for Emmanuel Sanders and they rebuilt that wide receiver room around Kendrick Bourne, Emmanuel Sanders, Deebo Samuel. And then eventually in 2020, here came Brandon Ayuk. But this will be the first time that Kyle Shanahan's going to go into a season since 2018 where he's not trying to figure out exactly how to use Deebo Samuel in each game plan. This is going to be one of the most unique times in Kyle Shanahan's career, since 2019 for sure, because people are going to come in and they're still going to be looking for Christian McCaffrey to see where he's lined up and moving, and Kyle's got a chess piece that he can move around. But the way that he builds his offensive game plan is different than ever before. He would have to have a lot of plays that were built for Deebo Samuel, a lot of the offense that only Deebo Samuel could run. And I talked about Christian McCaffrey doing some of the things Deebo does, but he's not Deebo. Like they are different. So there are unique qualities to Deebo Samuel that were within the offense that Kyle Shanahan put Deebo in. Because when it comes to declaring personnel groupings as a defense, you saw Deebo Samuel as a wide receiver. So when he was out there, you declared him as a wide receiver, which meant if Juwan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk were out there with Deebo, that was 11 personnel. In those situations, Deebo could then go to the backfield and give you some unique looks. You're a nickel, and now the 49ers are prepared to run the ball. So you have Kyle Juszczyk on the field, one running back, three wide receivers. That's 11 personnel. They go smaller to be able to handle that room because you have three wide receivers. And then next thing you know, Deebo Samuel's a running back, and you've got an advantage on offense. You can't really do that with Christian McCaffrey in the run game. Christian McCaffrey's always going to be declared a running back. So if he is and he's on the field with Kyle Juszczyk, that's 21 personnel. So they're going to play it with a base 3-4 or 4-3 set. They're not going to go to nickel. So maybe you could find an advantage in the passing game with Christian McCaffrey, but once again, different. So the declaration for the defense when it comes to personnel grouping is one of the most important things when it comes to offensive play calling. And the reason is you're looking for mismatches. One of the easiest ways to find a mismatch is to get them to declare and add a player on the field that you know you can take advantage of. So if you're looking to run the ball and you can get them to bring on their nickel corner, you could take advantage of that nickel corner in the run game. They're usually a little bit smaller, easier to block than a linebacker. So you have an advantage. With McCaffrey, then when they go to their base set, you have an advantage in the passing game. Because now you've got Christian McCaffrey going against a linebacker or a safety, or if they match up with McCaffrey with somebody else, like a corner, maybe you get George Kittle in one of those matchups. That's what the 49ers were always looking for. You remember Deebo going deep against the Seattle Seahawks and beating Jamal Adams with that big vertical play. Big reason why? He's covering the third receiver, who is Deebo Samuel, because of how they declared on Christian McCaffrey. So those two guys working together to create unique personnel groupings was what really helped Kyle Shanahan. But there's also a drawback to that. When you put so much emphasis in your offense on one particular player's influence on a defense, when that player's missing, your offense can struggle because now you've got to think on the fly. You've got to adjust. And so sometimes you're playing catch up and sometimes your offense becomes out of rhythm. Oh, we were going to do this with Deebo. We were going to do that. We were going to move him here. This was going to give a matchup for McCaffrey. This is going to give a matchup for Kittle. And so with that being out of the offense, the 49ers now are going to go to more of a consistent look on offense. And I think this is the evolution, is they no longer have to worry about a certain player being out completely becoming catastrophic. Yes, it would still hurt if George Kittle is out of the game, especially now, because they don't have a receiving tight end. So you're going to have to change it up. But you could go to your 11 personnel plays with three wide receivers and you could be okay. If Christian McCaffrey's out, yes, you're going to lose some of the matchup things that you love with Christian McCaffrey, but you do have guys like Isaac Arendo that could step in that could make some plays in the passing game, but you could also use George Kittle in that role or even some of the wide receivers. So you don't lose a ton in that direction, maybe a couple of matchups, but not as significant as the Deebo Samuel role. That's what I'm saying. It's a little bit different. Your run game doesn't change with Christian McCaffrey out. So you're not throwing that whole portion out. With Deebo out, you were throwing out part of your run game. You were throwing out part of your passing game. It was really a struggle. So this is going to be the first time since 2019 that Kyle Shanahan comes in. And now if Ricky Pearsall's out for a play, somebody steps into that role. If Juwan Jennings is out for a couple plays or half a game, somebody steps into that role. Now you have guys that just step into a game plan. You're not contingent on a guy being healthy. And to a point you are, right? We talked about McCaffrey and with George Kittle, but it's not to the degree of Deebo Samuel. So what does a 49ers offense look like now that you don't get Deebo Samuel in? Well, now it is a little bit more free. It's a little bit more open. It's a little bit more consistent in its looks. And you're not so much looking for defenses to put so much focus on where is Deebo Samuel. And now you're kind of just game planning to take advantage of the defense's weaknesses minus just a personnel player. And I think this is going to open some things up for this 49ers offense. It's going to be a little bit more unique. I think they're going to go a little bit more back to the play action pass. They've kind of went away from that a little bit over the last year or so. But I think that this could be an opportunity for them to go back to that, because if they can establish the outside zone look again, they could create some opportunities for some of these wide receivers who can create separation horizontally. That is going to be a key impact to this season, creating separation horizontally. Now, Kyle Shanahan, with personnel decisions, right, him and John Lynch, they've added some speed to be able to create some vertical separation as well. But when you look at the 49ers sum of parts, their wide receiver room, these guys create separation horizontally, which means they create separation in zone the most. Yes, they can get off man coverage, right? We've seen Jawan Jennings do it. But every one of these guys are guys that create space and then win in space. So one of the first things you do when you want to do that is create an opportunity to get guys moving on defense. One of the keys to offense is getting players to move out of their normal spot or to flow out of their normal spot in their zone. And when you get a run game going and then you play action pass off of it, you're going to get movement. When you have guys that create space horizontally and then you get linebackers to move horizontally, you're going to create windows for Brock Purdy to be able to deliver the football. So that's going to be one of the key elements to this offense. And I think we're going to see a little bit of a return to play action pass more than we've seen over the last couple of years under Brock Purdy, is getting that movement again and allowing guys like Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall and Robinson to catch the football, horizontally. Even a guy like Jacob Cowing catching the ball horizontally. But I think it also adds some aspects to the game that are going to benefit George Kittle. I think George Kittle really was a big, huge impact player. I know he's consistently had good seasons still, but when you go back and you look at the impact he had in seasons like 2018, where the offense really ran through him and he became a focal point of the offense, this is a guy that can put up over 1,300 yards. And I think you're going to see a little bit of a return to that. It's going to be a little bit more tight end centric when it comes to getting George Kittle the ball. This is part of the reason they went out and they got Luke Farrell. And so that George Kittle didn't have to stay in and block as much, but he could go out into routes. And without Deebo Samuel, he is your number one yak monster. When you look at the 49ers offense now, Jennings can get you some yards in yak, but it's never going to be a crazy amount, right? Touchdown type plays. Pearsall can get you some. We saw it last year against Tampa Bay. He was able to get into the end zone on a crosser. He's got some yak potential. But now your whole shot guy went from Deebo, who every time he touched the ball, it could be a touchdown, to now it's going to be George Kittle. And I think that element alone is going to give Kittle more targets and more opportunities. And this is the type of offensive scheme that really benefits George Kittle, is a horizontal movement type system where sometimes he's run blocking, which he absolutely loves, and sometimes he's coming out on the other side or working against the formation and creating opportunities behind the line of scrimmage where he comes out on the other side with a little slip and catches the ball. So you're getting a little bit of an evolution with how they're going to focus the offense, where it was focused very much so on Deebo Samuel. Even though you had Christian McCaffrey and he was a focal point of defenses, the offense focal point was Deebo Samuel. He was the 49ers X factor in how everything else went. It started with Deebo getting the attention of the defense, whether it was motions, movement, getting the ball in his hands, everything, all the window dressing built around number one. With Deebo Samuel out, it's going to be a little bit more broad when it comes to the focus of the defense, which means Kyle Shanahan can be more broad when it comes to how he influences the defense. And it can change game by game. That means in a certain game where there's a matchup that you love for George Kittle, he could be the X factor. Then it could be Christian McCaffrey. The next week it could be Ricky Pearsall. Then it could be Jawan Jennings. you can now move it around. There could be more versatility within this offense, more pliability, more flexibility. And I think that's what the 49ers, I think, are very hopeful can happen in this offense. Now, you did lose a big weapon, and whenever you can get eyes focused on one guy, it does impact everything. I mean, if you have a star player on your offense, it makes it easier for everyone else. And that is just an element that's going to change this season for the 49ers offense. But I think it creates opportunities. And I want to look at the 49ers roster overall because we've seen them kind of go through a little bit of a change when it comes to the way that they evaluate some of the younger players. They are bringing on guys now with speed, right? We talked about Pearsall. He's not exactly a speed guy, but we were talking about the players that are behind. The last 2 years, when it came to fourth round picks, they drafted Jordan Watkins, who runs a 4.3, Jacob Cowing, who runs a 4.3. These guys are guys that can stretch the field vertically. Why is it important to have vertical threats? Well, the 49ers, as soon as Kyle Shanahan got to San Francisco, went out and got a vertical threat in Marquise Goodwin because it creates the ability to have spots underneath. So when I was talking about the play action earlier, you want to get guys to move horizontally, but you also love for them to step up because when linebackers step up, it creates a void over the middle of the field. And of course, we know the 49ers have lived there. Over the last year or so, teams have been trying to keep their linebackers a little bit deeper and try to stop the run with the 7-man box. When they've been effective, the 49ers offense has struggled to win between the hash marks. They've had to go outside the numbers. Longer throws for Brock Purdy, more difficult, more contested throws. Those throws take longer to get there, which means cornerbacks can drive on the football a little bit. That's why when you play a team like the Chiefs, if you can't consistently run the ball up the middle, they're going to clamp you down on the outside and make it very difficult. They're going to be able to blitz you on third down. So 49ers establishing a run game is going to be huge. That's going to bring the linebackers up. Then you get a Jacob Cowing or a Jordan Watkins to stretch the field vertically. When those guys press the stretch the field vertically, and especially if you run them through the middle of the field, you're going to get a safety that steps up or steps back. You're going to get linebackers to step up to try to stop Christian McCaffrey. That's why it's important to get that run game. And then that void over the middle of the field for guys like George Kittle, for guys like Ricky Pearsall, like Christian McCaffrey. Those are going to be impact plays. And I know McCaffrey a lot of the times has got to be the guy running the fake. But this is why I believe the offense is going to lean very heavily towards George Kittle. I think there's going to be opportunities he hasn't seen in a little while because he's going to become more of a focus of this offense. Now, I also believe there's going to be more of a focus for Kyle Juszczyk. I think Kyle Juszczyk's going to have more opportunities. Even though I think the 49ers want to run more 12 personnel, which is one running back and two tight ends, I don't think they're now going away from their 21 personnel. I think that Juszczyk snaps are going to continue to decrease a little bit because they are going to go with a variety of different looks, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 21. They're going to mix this thing up a little bit because now they need more variety, more different looks to kind of impact the defense when it comes to personnel groupings. But I think 21 personnel, the 49ers still run it more than any other team in the NFL. And I think there's going to be opportunity for Kyle Juszczyk now to catch the ball. This has been something that really has kind of went away over the last several years is Juszczyk's impact. When he was with the 49ers in 2017, 2018, his impact was felt a lot more. Now, he was a younger player, but his impact when it came to catching the football was way bigger, right? In 2018, he caught 30 passes for the 49ers. I don't think it's going to be that kind of impact, but I do think that there's going to be opportunities now with the focus changing and how teams are going to be playing, George Kittle, and my belief that there's going to be a little bit more return to play action, that Juszczyk's going to have some opportunities to leak out and make some catches for this football team. So I think that there's going to be some unique looks for the 49ers as they look to find different ways to get offense going. And I think one of those ways is to manufacture getting Kyle Juszczyk open. So I think that he's going to have a little bit of an impact on helping this football team. But it all starts with now a variety. And it had to happen that they had to get the right type of wide receivers. Now, they would love to have Brandon Ayuk right now. Brandon Ayuk at X with Jawan Jennings at the slot and Ricky Pearsall at the Z. You've got the guys that are able to do it. Ayuk's going to be out. So there's going to be Demarcus Robinson stepping in, and the versatility between Robinson and between Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall is something I really love. All three of those guys can play all three positions at wide receiver: X, Z, and the slot. And the reason I love that is now you can move them around for matchups. And I get it. People are going to say, well, Ricky Pearsall's not a true X. Jawan Jennings not a true X. Yes. But when you're talking about finding matchups, that's one of the key elements. So no longer do you have players that, right, you couldn't really put Deebo at X. That's not something that he could do. He could do it on occasion, but that was not a matchup that you love. Well, now you have guys that, hey, I kind of like those matchups. I don't mind Ricky Pearsall at X sometimes. I don't mind Jawan Jennings out there at X sometimes. They can win. And I think that finding that ability to not have guys that are pigeonholed by position is going to be huge. That's going to be an element to this offense that's going to give Kyle Shanahan flexibility. Oh, Ricky needs to take a break off? No problem. Demarcus Robinson can go play Z, or he can play X, and Jawan can play Z. You're having less problems with part of our offense or something's not as good because we have this unique player in Deebo Samuel that needs to play a unique position. So I think that versatility and flexibility is going to be a key element as well. I also believe that they've added now a couple of elements to this offense that are probably flying under the radar. And I know that Garendo's speed is on people's radar about what he could do. But the 49ers really haven't had a speed element like Isaac Garendo since they had Raheem Mostert. But people don't remember that Matt Breida had over 850 yards his rookie season in 2018. It's not like this offense can't produce running backs that can get yards. But I think Garendo's whole shot ability is going to add something to this offense, but also his ability to step in for McCaffrey. But another element to this offense that I think is going to be on display this year is I do believe the 49ers are going to use Christian McCaffrey and Isaac Garendo on the field together. I don't think it's going to be a lot of times, but I think that there's an opportunity to do so because we talked about personnel groupings and declaring. And I think if defenses see McCaffrey and Garendo, especially early, they're going to declare them both as running backs. But when they do that, you're going to get a 4-3 or 3-4 base defense. I think as the season progresses, they will declare Christian McCaffrey as a wide receiver in that type of look, which is 11 personnel. Then it's interesting. Could Isaac Garendo and Christian McCaffrey block for each other enough to where you could get some cool dual back, right, 2 half-pack looks? I think it could be fun. You could put McCaffrey in the slot. You could use George Kittle to come back and do some things blocking. I think it could be a lot of fun. So I do think we're going to get some unique looks like that. Kyle Shanahan fooled around with that a little bit at the end of 2022 with Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey. I thought it worked out pretty well. So maybe some of that comes in to the element. And I think that could be huge for the 49ers. So this offense is going to continue to evolve. But what is really evolving into is kind of who the focus is going to be on, and that it's going to have a little bit more pliability. It's not going to struggle as much with the Deebo role. So I don't think the 49ers are looking to fill the Deebo role. I don't think Kyle Shanahan would ever turn down a player that he felt was a Deebo-esque player that he could use uniquely to make a lot of big-time plays. But I don't think they're openly searching for that guy either, because honestly, I don't think that there's that guy that's out there. There's not that guy that can do it like that. Like I said, Christian McCaffrey to a point, I think he could do some of those elements, but I don't think that's what they're looking for. I think they're changing the way that they're approaching offense. But remember, it's always about personnel. It's always about matchups and finding the matchups that work. And with the 49ers' current offense the way it is, they've got some versatility to be able to move guys around. This offense is going to move through George Kittle. This offense is going to move through Christian McCaffrey. And then everything else is going to play off that play action of the 49ers run game. And you're going to see a little bit of a return to old school Kyle Shanahan offense with the outside zone, the gap scheme, but getting guys moving horizontally with wide receivers that create space horizontally, and then allowing your playmakers to make plays in space. The return of Yak is coming back to San Francisco. Last year, not Yak. It was down the field. This year, they're going to go to return to Yak. The offensive line is going to have to play good, though. And that's the biggest question. One of the biggest question marks is, can the offensive line consistently create holes for Christian McCaffrey, Isaac Guerrero, Jordan James to run the football. So more traditional style offense from Kyle Shanahan. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be the new incarnation as the offense continues to evolve. He'll have something new. He'll have some new wrinkles, a couple dual back rolls. I think it's going to be fun. You'll still see jet sweeps. You'll still see quick screens. It'll just be a little bit different. But thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. This episode was brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.